Hey, what's up guys? This is Voyage Treader, and today I'm going to be ranting about something for a while about, in my opinion, one of the most anticipated video games of all time. And yes, I'm talking about Banjo-Tooie. Um, Now, at the end of Banjo-Tooie, when you beat it, all that's left is Gruntilda's decapitated head, and she goes on about how she'll get her revenge in Banjo-Tooie. Okay, so several years passed, and there was nothing on Banjo-Tooie, but though there were rumors that the game was being made, nothing really surfaced. Um, Aside from a Space World 2000 video, which I think it was to demonstrate the power of the Nintendo GameCube, but it had some Banjo-Kazooie footage, and it had Banjo and Kazooie being chased by all of the enemies from Banjo-Tooie down a canyon, which a lot of people, including myself, speculate that would have been Wizpig's Canyon from Diddy Kong Racing. Now, after that video came out, Rare stated that it was strictly just to demonstrate the power of the GameCube on how many characters could appear on the screen at one time. Well, um, and this is how sad and pathetic it was for me. Up to, the time, during the course of that waiting time when Banjo-Tooie was rumored, and all that, I would always check the internet, and go to various websites and whatnot to try and see if I could find anything at all, like even a little morsel of information pertaining to Banjo-Tooie being made. Um, but unfortunately, I never really found anything. And to me, that was the game that I had always anticipated. It was a game that I had dreamed about, and honestly, I never gave up hope. And I don't think it was until, um, I think it was 2006 that news broke that there was going to be a new Banjo-Kazooie game. And there was a teaser trailer released. And this trailer showed Banjo and Kazooie walking through this cartoon version of their house, and whenever they break down the door, there's Spiral Mountain and glorious next generation graphics. It looks so awesome. I was so pumped. I literally cried almost because I had waited so long to see Banjo-Kazooie come back, and I was just so pumped. I mean, I was just, I was just so really pumped. And after that, I mean, I constantly, and I mean constantly, would go to Rare's site, I would go to other sites, and Rare was known for their secretive nature, and they wouldn't reveal a whole lot of anything. So, what information that was revealed was throughout their scribes page on their website, which basically is a Q&A with them at times. And there really wasn't a whole lot to go on. And finally, there was a date set that they would announce everything. They would reveal all about Banjo-Tooie. Well, that time, the working title was Banjo-Kazooie 3. There was no Banjo-Tooie title decided yet. And so we're all pumped. The day finally comes, the big day. The big day, probably the biggest day since in gaming for me since Banjo-Tooie came out. And I opened up Rare's site. I was so pumped, expecting, glorious Banjo-Kazooie goodness, and I stared at the screen for a couple seconds. Not a couple seconds, it was like probably a full hour I stared at that screen. And I stared at it, and I stared at it some more. And I didn't know what to think of what was on my computer screen. Banjo and Kazooie were driving cars. I saw no platforming. I saw nothing from the classic Banjo series. As a matter of factly, you could basically... This basically was a game with the Banjo-Kazooie characters slapped in it. I saw nothing. I saw nothing of the Banjo charm. I saw nothing. Yeah, the gibberish language was there. You know, the gibberish language was there and all, but um, it, you know, there was nothing Banjo except for the characters and the gibberish and the music. That was it. There was nothing there that was from the old Banjo games. You know, and so I was upset about this, but still I was interested in the game, as any Banjo-Kazooie fan probably was at that time. I bought it, you know, and I will agree, you know, the first time I played through it, it was pretty decent, but, you know, I only got like halfway through the game before I started to get really bored with it. You know, there was nothing, the worlds themselves are empty. You know, there's nothing to them. They're not even imaginative in my opinion. One world is based off of, you know, the worlds from the past Banjo-Kazooie games, and, um, I mean, it was good. I mean, Grant Kirkhope did good music for it. He did good music for the entire game. It's sad, though, that he retired, that he left Rare, you know, after Banjo-Kazooie Nuts and Bolts, but, you know, aside from the empty worlds, there was no platforming. What platforming there was finding Mumbo crates, and they were not fun to find. They were not fun to track down. You know, it was just ridiculous. There were no boss battles. There were special encounters with Grunty. Those were supposed to be the boss battles. I'm going to be very honest. I didn't get I didn't feel anything from the past Banjo games until I went back to Spiral Mountain. That's the last world in the game, Spiral Mountain. The music, the graphics, I nearly cried because I felt like I had teleported out of a crap of a game into a true Banjo-Kazooie game. And it, I mean, I faced off against Grunty for the final time. And granted, the final battle was decent, but still, it it just didn't feel like a Banjo game. You know, and at the very end, there's a like a quiz with log, and that's basically, I guess, for the people who were expecting a Grunty's Furnace Fun or Tower of Tragedy type quiz show like that were in Banjo-Kazooie and Tooie. But honestly, it just felt like it was really forced. It was just like shoehorned in there for the classic Banjo fans. Basically, they made this game for the newer generation of gamers. They didn't make this for the dedicated, you know, fan base of Banjo-Kazooie. They made this for the younger generation. You know, and I think it's quite funny because the reason why they said they changed, you know, the platforming formula in Banjo-Kazooie to vehicles is because, and I quote, it's because the platforming market wasn't, you know, platforming games don't sell very well these days. Well, I think it's kind of stupid to say, since Retro Studios has took one of their franchises and made a new game to it, and it sold like hotcakes. Donkey Kong Country Returns. Wow, platformers really, you know, don't sell very well, don't they? Stupid. And also, the Mario games themselves basically sell themselves. You don't even need to have any videos or gameplay trailers or anything. They just sell. You can just put them on sale, and you know, people will just buy those things up like crazy. You know, platforming games sell. You know, don't give me this bull about platformer games don't sell, Rare, because they do sell. You know, and people can say, oh, Microsoft, you know, blame Microsoft, don't blame Rare. They hadn't, you know, Microsoft made them put vehicles in the game. That's a little bull. I'm sorry, but that is a little bull. Rare has just as much input in the Banjo-Kazooie series as Microsoft does. You know, Microsoft does, you know, I highly doubt was breathing down their necks when they made that new Banjo game. I doubt it very highly, especially whenever Halo 3 was coming out and all of that. I think they had bigger fish to fry than Banjo-Kazooie, and I don't think they were focusing their attention on a small platformer game. You know, I think that would be the least of their concerns. So, don't give me this bull that it was Microsoft's decision to turn the Banjo game series into a vehicle series. No. Rare, it was their fault that they made a crappy game, and quite frankly, it was probably the biggest slap in the face I've ever gotten from a video game before. There is no excuse for it. Um, it just was just a terrible game. I mean, even if it was a game all on its own, it would still be terrible. I mean, it's a terrible, boring game. I have not beaten it since it came out, you know. I've tried to go back through and beat it again, you know, and I get bored like right at the very beginning. That's how boring it gets. It gets boring really quickly. Now, granted, you know, that's just my opinion. You know, there's probably some people out there that like the game, and that's fine. But for a Banjo-Kazooie fan such as myself, it is not good. You know, it's unacceptable for Rare to make a game like that. To make a game that way, a game that I have waited, and many other people had waited 10 years for. And that's what we got. You know, that's just plain rude and disrespectful to your fan base. You know, that's just not the way you should make video games, Rare. I'm sorry. You know, Rare used to be the Pixar of, you know, gaming companies, but they're not anymore. You know, and it's just terrible. Um, and basically in the entire game, you know, granted, Banjo-Kazooie and 2 broke the fourth wall a couple times, you know, but it was very, very, how do I put this? It was very subtle. Banjo-Kazooie Nuts and Bolts feels like a parody of Banjo-Kazooie. It doesn't feel like a Banjo-Kazooie game. It feels like a Banjo-Kazooie game that's parroting Banjo-Kazooie. That it feels that way. It honestly does. You know, because the characters, you know, they flat out, you know, reference Rare and all this and all this, and that wasn't in past Banjo games. I mean, if it was very, very subtle. You know, and it completely made it feel like I wasn't playing through an adventure game. It felt like I was playing through a parody, a spoof of Banjo-Kazooie, and I didn't like it. You know, and honestly, um, if this was indeed to be the, you know, if Rare, and I highly doubt at this point Rare is going to make another Banjo game. I highly doubt it unless Nintendo, you know, buys the rights for the series or buys back Rare, period. You know, and honestly, if they were to make another Banjo game and it would be exactly like Nuts and Bolts, I would rather just have the series end with Nuts and Bolts. You know, I think that I think just let the series die with some dignity, you know, at least, because you would just basically completely ruin the franchise just by continuing with the vehicle formula. Um, and the character designs, I like the character designs. I mean, a lot of people don't like them, but I like them. You know, I thought, you know, most video game characters do have to, you know, change their looks because that, you know, that's the way all video game characters, you know, that's what happens to them all. You know, look at Sonic the Hedgehog, look at Crash Bandicoot, look at Rayman. You know, look at Mario. They've had subtle changes made to them because, you know, you have to make, you know, you can't keep the same character design. You know, you have to improve on the design. You know, it's been several years since Banjo-Tooie. They had to, they had to change Banjo and Kazooie's looks to, you know, to fit the times, you know, in a way. But, you know, it's... And then, there was Stop and Swap. You didn't expect they would reveal Stop and Swap in Banjo-Kazooie Nuts and Bolts, even though they were pretty much, hyping it up. Nope, they didn't answer it. As a matter of factly, they just continued the mystery with a Stop and Swap 2. So, yeah. They really cleared that up for longtime Banjo fans. But anyway, I'm almost up to 15 minutes. I'm going to have to split this into two parts. Um, I just want to ask you guys if you know, please, you know, like, subscribe. This is my first YouTube video for, you know, my channel. and I would really appreciate it if you could give me some support and like this and subscribe, and keep an eye out for the next part. I'll probably upload it within the next day or so. But thank you very much, and I'll continue this next video.